The Minidoka Swing Band, based in Portland, Oregon, was formed in 2007 to pay tribute to the Japanese Americans who were interned during World War II and to honor the Nisei veterans. We educate the public through our music and presentations, and we are thrilled with the release of the Go for Broke Soldiers stamp by the United States Postal Service. We dedicate this song to the Nisei veterans.
Hello, I'm Congressman Adam Schiff, and I'm honored to join you today to recognize the contributions made by Japanese American soldiers during World War II and to celebrate the first issuance of the Go for Broke Soldiers Forever stamp. A decade ago, I was approached by my constituents and Japanese American community leaders who sought to recognize the contributions of the Go for Broke soldiers with the Congressional Gold Medal, the nation's highest civilian honor. Through this effort, I was able to meet and hear the experiences of these remarkable soldiers, true American heroes, who defended our freedoms and ideals with incredible bravery and valor. Their heroism lies in how they fought and defended the values of America, equality, justice, and opportunity, even when those values were denied to them and their families at home. This stamp honors our Go for Broke soldiers, their courage, remarkable accomplishments, and unwavering patriotism. It also reminds us how we must always work to protect civil liberties and justice for all people in this great nation. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Cheryl Yamada. I am president of the Japanese American Veterans Association. I appreciate the opportunity to join the celebration of the release of the Go for Broke stamp that honors Japanese American men and women who served during World War II. On behalf of JAVA, let me express our gratitude to the organizers of the Stamp Our Story campaign, who had the vision to start this initiative in 2005. the stamp campaign faced an uphill battle against tremendous odds. The organizers persevered over these many years and finally achieved victory with the Postal Service's approval in 2020. Java and I are proud to have been a part of this campaign. The reason why this stamp is important is that this is the first time that all Japanese American men and women who served in World War II have been honored for their service. The stamp is our nation's way of saying thank you for your service. The stamp honors them as America's heroes. The stamp also draws attention to the spirit of the Japanese Americans who served. Faced with the government's discriminatory actions taken against them and the denial of their constitutional rights based solely on their ethnicity, the Japanese American men and women who answered the call to serve showed their loyalty to America. Their faith in America was not eroded by the distrust or overt prejudice that they faced. They served with honor and valor in Europe with the 100th Infantry Battalion, the 442nd Regimental Combat Team, and in the Pacific with the Military Intelligence Service, in the Women's Army Corps, Nurses Corps, and in rebuilding Pearl Harbor. They all embraced the go for broke spirit that is an integral part of their Japanese heritage. Their spirit is the guiding light for all Americans to follow. Thank you for allowing me to be part of this celebration.
Hello, I'm Congressman Mark Takano, and I represent California's 41st District in the United States House of Representatives. I also have the distinct honor of serving as chairman of the House Committee on Veterans Affairs. I'd like to thank the Stamp Our Story Coalition for having me here today at the unveiling of the Nisei Veterans Postage Stamp, and for all of your work to bring this historic stamp to fruition. Nisei veterans are an integral part of our nation's history and of the story of World War II. In fact, my great-uncle Manso served in the 442nd Regimental Combat Team during the war, but sadly lost his life while serving in Italy. Their legacy and their motto, "Go for broke," continues to inspire me to this day. The stamp that is being unveiled today is another reminder of the heroism and bravery of the Nisei soldiers. They stood up for America. Many of them laid down their lives for America, even as America was not living up to the ideals on which she was founded. Go for broke implies they were making a bet on the promise of this country, and I believe they won their bet. I'm acutely aware that I would not be a congressman today had it not been for the incredible service and the bet they made. The bet they made over 75 years ago is still a bet worth making. A bet not on a perfect America, but a bet on the promise of America. And every veteran today knows that this promise is still worth fighting for. Thank you.
Today, we celebrate the issuance of the Go for Broke Japanese American Soldiers of World War II commemorative stamp by the U.S. Postal Service. This stamp has been a long time coming. When the Stamp Our Story group first began the campaign over 15 years ago, they heard all the reasons why the Postal Service would not or could not create a stamp to honor our Nisei veterans. But just like many thought redress would never happen, we all continued to work, to advocate, and pressure for the stamp. And just like redress, this has been a success because of the power of our Nisei veterans' stories, of their dedication and their sacrifice for our country. And we celebrate that we can recognize them in this way. We all owe a huge debt of gratitude to the Stamp Our Story co-chairs, Fusa Takahashi and Ueno Sako, for their leadership, and to the many community organizations including the many veterans groups, particularly the Japanese American Veterans Association. And of course, I am grateful to our JACL leadership, chapters, and members across the country who put in so much effort advocating for this stamp to become a reality. The great thing about this stamp is that it is not something that is limited to this one day of celebration and commemoration, but something we can and should use every day to share with others so that maybe someone will see the stamp on a letter or maybe a bill payment that you send, and they'll become curious about why do we have this stamp to honor Nisei veterans. And they'll learn about our story and the many other stories about Japanese American incarceration. And then perhaps through that deeper understanding, our Japanese American story becomes further ingrained as a core American history story, and that what happened to Japanese Americans will never happen to another group again.
And now I'd like to present a message from Joe Biden, the President of the United States. It is my honor to recognize the United States Postal Service's release of the Go for Broke Japanese American Soldiers of World War II commemorative stamp. Japanese American soldiers who fought for our nation's freedom during World War II represent the best of who we are as Americans: patriotic, selfless, and courageous. Their service and devotion know no bounds, and our nation owes them a profound debt of gratitude. Our Japanese American service members served heroically in World War II in combat, the Military Intelligence Service, and the Women's Army Corps. They served with bravery and valor and were part of some of the most decorated and distinguished military units in the nation's history. 18,000 medals, 9 presidential unit citations, and 21 medals of honor were awarded to the all-Japanese American 100th Infantry Battalion and the 442nd Regimental Combat Team. These patriots fought courageously for our freedom and democracy around the globe, even while being stripped of personal liberties and property rights here in America. That's why this stamp also recognizes the struggle of the Japanese Americans who were immorally and unconstitutionally forced into inhumane incarceration camps. It is a reminder of our history's most shameful and darkest days, and it is why I promise to fight every day for a more just and inclusive America. Xenophobia still exists in this country, and anti-Asian violence and hate has tragically increased during this pandemic. I signed the COVID-19 Hate Crimes Act into law in May to address the crisis, and my administration will continue to stand up against the ugly poison of hate that has long haunted and plagued our nation. The resilience and determination of Japanese American service members who fought during World War II embody the best of the American spirit, and this stamp is a small but significant way to honor their allegiance and gallantry. God bless you all, and God bless our troops.
This is Tiffany Tamaribuchi and the Sacramento Taikodan playing to honor those who served with the 100th Battalion and the 442nd Regimental Combat Team. Go for broke.
Test. All right. 35 years in the TV business, and I finally figured out how to turn a mic on. Hi, everybody. How are you doing? It's nice to actually see everybody in person, and I feel pretty good about it. You feel okay? This is a perfect little gathering. Our family members here for a very special occasion, and I'm honored to be part of this. My name is David Ono with KABC TV, and I know most of you I have met and had many conversations with, so we're all one big family here, and I think this is a wonderful little celebration for something that was a grassroots effort that has truly paid off. And by the way, the folks that have been working hard in the lobby, they keep telling me, remind them that this is grassroots. We're all volunteers, so it may not go as smoothly as they were anticipating, but please forgive us. I'm like, oh, come on. I mean, everybody knows what it's taken to get here. So thank you all for being with us today. We're going to recognize some really wonderful people. But I want to welcome you to the first city of issue, Los Angeles, Japanese American World War II Soldiers U.S. Postal Service stamp dedication. The Nisei veteran story is an integral part of Japanese American World War II history, as it is from the U.S. incarceration camps that many of them volunteered or were drafted from. Their legacy is a testament to Nisei values, Japanese American values of honor, duty, and perseverance. So we are gathered here today because of those very Nisei values and the perseverance and dedication of 3 women and a yonsei with the formation of the Stamp Our Story initiative. That was back in 2005. They wanted a Nisei World War II veteran stamp to ensure the service and sacrifices of the 100, the 442nd, the 522nd, the MIS, the WACs, and 1399 and other units could be honored and more widely known. And we certainly know that our world needs to know this story now more than ever. You cannot argue the relevance of what happened during that time in history and how we could learn from that and use that during today's world. So we are so grateful to their true go for broke spirit. It is because of them that we are gathered here today. And thankfully, in person, to celebrate the first issue of the Go for Broke Japanese American Soldiers of World War II Forever stamp. So here in the city of Los Angeles, we're on the steps of the Japanese American National Museum. Fusa Takahashi, who is here with us today, Aiko King as well, they talked about this idea of a stamp. They later convinced Chiz Ohira and then Wayne Osako to join them in their grassroots efforts, and here we are. It actually paid off. It took a lot of hard work, but it came to fruition, so congratulations. So first of all, let's get the program started. Please, if you can, stand for Kimo Cornwell of the great jazz fusion band Hiroshima. He will play the Star Spangled Banner. And by the way, June is here as well, and she will play a little bit later on today. But first, please welcome Kimo. Beautiful. Kimba, that was just beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. So we've often heard the story about how the 10442nd MIS is the most decorated unit in American military history for their size and length of service. But part of those decorations are called the Presidential Unit Citations that are awarded to the group as a whole for extraordinary heroism and action against an armed enemy. And I want to point out that this blue flag behind me, that's the unit's flag, and the 7 presidential citations still hang on this flag, and that's a very important characteristic, a very important achievement by this great group. And thank you very much, and I want to make sure that you understood that and saw that we are recognizing that here today as it hangs on this flag right now. So yesterday, Thursday, the veterans and the co-founders had the opportunity to pay a visit to the Go for Broke Monument and Japanese American Memorial Court at the Japanese American Cultural and Community Center. So they shot a little video of that. We're going to play that right now. Take a look. All right, we have some wonderful elected officials with us today, and I want to introduce them. If you're around, just give us a wave or stand up or something, but we want to begin with the Honorable Mark Takano, U.S. Representative. Thank you so much, a huge supporter of this community. Jani Iwamoto from Utah State Senator, right over there. Oh, that's smart. We could see you with your light, that's great. Tammy Omoto Frias, representing LA County Supervisor Hilda Solis. Somewhere over there. Daniel Hirai, U.S. Postal Service. He's right over there. We're going to hear more from Daniel in just a second. Ann Burroughs, President and CEO of Japanese American National Museum. Ann's right over here. You're going to hear from Ann in just a second as well. Patty Hyatt, CEO, Japanese American Cultural and Community Center. Patty, you here somewhere? Thank you. Christine Yamazaki, CEO, National Veterans Legacy. I know she's here. Ken Hayashi, President, Japanese American Memorial Court. Miki Komai, publisher of the Rafu Shimpo. He's here. And then Dr. Chris Downing, Anaheim Elementary School District Superintendent. Thank you. And we have our co-founders of the Stamps Our Story, Fusa Takahashi, Aiko King, Wayne Osako, and Dr. John Mitamura, son of the late co-founder Chiz Ohira. And we can't say enough about their efforts and making this all happen. And we, of course, let me make sure I'm doing this correctly. Most importantly, the stars of the program today are World War II Nisei veterans. Yosh Nakamura with a 442nd. Yosh is right here. Thank you so much, Yosh. Don Miata, 100th Infantry Battalion. Don, there's Don right up there. Tok Yashihashi, 100th Infantry Battalion. Tok, right over here. And Ralph Matsumoto, MIS, Combat Engineer. Ralph, it's good to see you again. Can't say enough about our vets. It's always so fabulous to see you guys here, healthy, supporting the cause. And we can't thank you enough for all you've done for us. So now I want to introduce our first speaker, a person that you know so well. Love her dearly. She has accomplished so much, although she is the person who will not tell you all that she has accomplished, from fighting for civil rights, fighting apartheid, and so much more. And the person who allows us to use these great facilities. Ladies and gentlemen, Ms. Ann Burroughs.
Thank you, David, for that introduction. Well, you know, before I even say anything, before I formally welcome you, I want you to know that this is our first in-person event. We were closed for 14 long months, and we were not able to gather people under our roof, and that was exactly what Janum was built for. So it's just extraordinarily moving for me to have all of you here and to be able to welcome you and to host this important event. You know, I'd also like to recognize our veterans, and David is absolutely right. They are the stars of the show. We would not be here if it weren't for you, and our debt to you is extraordinary. I'm a daughter of a Second World War veteran and the niece of a Second World War fighter pilot, so I understand it, and my thanks to you, and of course to our elected officials who help to ensure that the right policies are enacted. Please be welcome. You know, it is such an honor. It's such an honor for us to be hosting this event today at Janum, and to be hosting all of you, because as David said, it was on the steps of the museum 15 years ago that this idea of the stamp was birthed. And we're so grateful to the founders of that committee who are with us today. We're so grateful for that vision, and we are just so grateful for that persistence that's paid off over the 15 years. It's a dream. It was a dream that they had to commemorate the extraordinary courage and heroism of the Nisei men and women who served in the Second World War. I'd also like to offer our collective thanks to the US Postal Service for recognizing and forever memorializing the heroism of these men and women in the issuance of this Go for Broke Forever stamp. And of course, as David said earlier on, the launch of the stamp could not be more timely or more urgent, especially as we're confronting the hateful rise of anti-Asian hatred across the country. And as Norm Mineta always says, Japanese Americans have been here before. So collectively we have an enormous duty, certainly the Japanese American community and Janum, to stand up against that. And for us to be able to host you here is a privilege. And we certainly see that as part of our mission to help accomplish that. You know, I'm such a great believer in place, in the power of place. And for those of you who don't know, but I'm sure many of you do know, but I'm going to say it anyway, that it's no accident that Janum was built on this place, because it was exactly on this site that Japanese Americans from this area were forced to gather to board the buses that would take them on to the incarceration camps. As the rumors of war were circulating, it was in our historic building next door that the parishioners of the Nishi gathered together to talk about what the impact would be on them, on their families, and their lives. And it was in the basement of that building where many of the parishioners stored their possessions for the duration of the war. So I see this site, I see our plaza, I see our campus as being one of those extraordinary ground zero points in the civil rights history of this country. And for us to be here in the National Center for the Preservation of Democracy, for this story, for the veteran story, has specific significance and very special significance. Because this building, this idea, this concept, this vision was Senator Daniel Inouye's vision. He built the National Center for the Preservation of Democracy. And he was one of the finest of the finest. They were all fine. All of the heroes were fine. But what the senator has done here was that he's brought that arc of history from those ideals, that promise of America, those ideals that the Japanese American veterans fought for, that those soldiers, those men and women served for, that they were willing to die for, and of course many of them did. It was to preserve that democracy, the institutions of democracy, to ensure that there would always be power to that democracy. So it's so fitting that we should be having the launch of the stamp in this building. You know, we're also so fortunate at JANM to have an extraordinarily rich collection of artifacts, which is the heart and soul of the museum, and it's these artifacts that weave together that extraordinary history and that extraordinary story. And we're also so privileged to have a rich collection of artifacts that commemorate the service and the heroism of the Nisei men and women who served their country. And later on in the program, we will have readings from the diary of Stanley Hayami and the letters of Henry Kondo. Both of these were two young men who were from this area. Henry Kondo was a medical student at USC, and he was 2 years in, and the war interrupted his service. Stanley Hayami and his family was, I believe, they were incarcerated at Gila River. And Stanley Hayami was a young high schooler when he was incarcerated at Heart Mountain. And he wrote this extraordinary diary, which is really one of our most treasured items, and in fact will be the subject of a very compelling exhibition that will be opening in the coming months. But Henry's letters, as you will hear, you know, there's extraordinarily poignant letters, a letter from his father to his son, the father's expression of concern about his son's health and about his son's safety, the son's letter to his father, apologizing for not being a good son or as good a son as he could be, and promising that he would come back. A letter to his sister talking about the conditions in his foxhole. And the entries of Stanley, his thoughts about being a teenager incarcerated, and then his thoughts of being a soldier in the European theater. And of course, neither of these men were to survive the war, but their legacy lives on. Their legacy lives on at JANM. Their legacy lives on in this place and in this space. So it's these two exceptional men, two exceptional Americans who chose to fight prejudice on two fronts. Their letters, their diaries, the stamp that we're commemorating, shows their profound commitment as Americans to the country they loved, the country of their birth, the country of their heart. And they have important lessons to teach us, important lessons of history as we strive to heed those lessons, to understand those lessons, to internalize those lessons. And we do that because we strive to make the imperfect present more present and a future that is all more just. So thank you to all of you. It's such a privilege to have you here. Thank you.
That Willie? Hi, Willie. Willie Ito, he is the cartoonist who did Lady and the Tramp, and he actually has created something today as well. So it's great to see you, Willie. Thanks for joining us. Anne, thank you so much. That was a wonderful speech, and I can't say enough. Anne is a very modest person, and I've convinced her to do a story with me that will be running on a segment on our station and called Facism, because she has so much more to her story than what you see here, and she has a great lesson for all of us when it comes to fighting for civil rights and the importance of that. So I'm looking forward to doing that, Anne, and thank you so much for allowing us to use this great facility. So next, I am pleased to welcome Daniel Hirai, Executive Plant Manager of Los Angeles from the U.S. Postal Service. And Daniel is joined by Beth Rubio, USPS Marketing Manager for Los Angeles, to unveil the stamp. So be prepared. This is a great moment for us. Please welcome Daniel.
Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for that kind introduction. I'm happy to be here on behalf of the United States Postal Service as we honor the bravery and the sacrifices of the Japanese American soldiers of World War II. More than 33,000 Nisei soldiers, Japanese American citizens by birth, signed up to fight for our country. Among other heroic actions, the Nisei served as interpreters, gathered intelligence in the Pacific, and flew glider planes over enemy lines in Germany. They built bridges and diffused mines in Italy. I found out my two great uncles fought in both Italy and in Germany in World War II. You see, my grandparents and my parents on both sides came to America for opportunity. As a fourth generation Yonsei, I grew up in Hawaii, listening to exploits of the famed Nisei fighters. They especially distinguished themselves in a segregated unit of troops, the 100th Infantry Battalion and the 442nd Regiment Combat Team. And their motto was, go for broke, right? Go for broke. A slang that means all in, to risk everything, and to make an all-out effort to win. They lived up to the motto with legendary acts of bravery and heroism, and to become one of the most decorated troops and decorated units in United States military history. Their spirit and perseverance continue to live on today in Japanese Americans. They have been part of my heritage and my inspiration to take risks, to face challenges, and to be successful in another great institution, the United States Postal Service. And now I consider myself very fortunate to be present at this moment where these two great institutions meet, as the Postal Service presents a stamp honoring these brave soldiers. This meritorious stamp is available now at post offices nationwide, or you can visit USPS.com. We are proud to present the Go for Broke Japanese American Soldiers of World War II Forever Stamp.
All right, that's beautiful. There'll be some opportunities to take some photos of it afterwards, but a beautiful job. And Daniel, thank you so much. That was a great speech and a great unveiling. Gorgeous stamp. We will now view one of our featured videotaped guest speakers, Lynn Harakuji, followed by the new film from Stamp Our Story, which shares its community origins that began, as we said, right here on the steps of JANM. Take a look.
Aloha. I'm Lynn Harakuji, president of the Nisei Veterans Legacy in Hawaii. It is truly an honor to be a part of this national milestone. All of the Nisei veteran organizations here in the Aloha State are excited to see the launch of this new stamp, the first in U.S. postal history to feature an Asian American soldier. There's a big story behind the Little Gopher Broke Soldier stamp. Here in Hawaii, we're especially proud that the image used for the stamp is based on a photo of Shiroku Whitey Yamamoto, a Hawaii Nisei soldier. Whitey was born on Hawaii Island in 1923 and volunteered to serve in the 442nd. He fought in Italy and France, and when he returned to Hawaii, continued to serve by volunteering at the U.S. Army Museum of Hawaii for over 20 years. He passed in 2018 at the age of 95. The Nisei men and women, including my own father, served during World War II despite a pervasive atmosphere of prejudice against Japanese Americans in this country. They lived a big story, but they also had a humble spirit, and it is falling upon us to make sure that their story is told. Theirs is a story of bravery and sacrifice on the battlefields in Europe and the Pacific. But it is also a story of what they did when they returned from the war to change things for the better. Here in Hawaii, they helped to break down societal barriers, take a stand against discrimination, instill cultural pride, and as a result, created greater opportunities for future generations. At a time when our nation is facing increasing divisions and a rise in anti-Asian sentiment, perhaps reminiscent of World War II, this stamp brings attention to the importance of upholding equality and justice. We hope that whenever we put this stamp on an envelope, we will remember both the stand that the Nisei soldiers took against discrimination and that the need for vigilance continues today. On behalf of the Hawaii Nisei veteran community, I thank the U.S. Postal Service for recognizing the important role of the Nisei soldiers, and to the Stamp Our Story campaign founders for their long 15-year journey to bring the stamp to reality. And I want to congratulate National Co-Chairs Wayne Osako and Fusa Takahashi for their positive and relentless efforts to ensure that the Gopher Broke Soldier stamp launch in LA, the first city of issue, is befitting of the legacy of these Nisei men and women of World War II. Mahalo.
Next, you'll hear from the representatives of the Stamp Our Story founders and supporters as they share about the inspiration of the Nisei legacy through soldier letters, personal reflections, testimonials, and creative tributes. Two original videotape performances for us are featured by spoken word artist Kaze Jones and by actor Derek Mio. Kaze will perform a special work created just for this event. Derek will be reading letters from LA native Sadao Munomori, a Nisei soldier who gave his life to save his friends and was posthumously awarded the first Medal of Honor among the 21 for the Nisei during World War II. So please take a look.
Cut. 2, 3, 4, all over the world. The marching cadence of Uncle Sam's fighting men. This is a brief account of one unique group of them. Americans with Japanese faces and Japanese names. They're members of the Japanese-American Combat Team. Many of them volunteered to fight when they were behind the barbed wire enclosures of relocation centers, where they had been moved in 1942, soon after the outbreak of war. They volunteered to fight for the land of their birth, the adopted land of their parents. The Hawaiian boys gave the combat team a motto, "Go for broke."
I wanna go back to my little grass shack back in Hawaii. I wanna be with all the Connies and Wahilas that I knew long ago. I can hear the old guitar.
Aiko and I went to Japanese American National Museum in Los Angeles and saw the exhibit on the Nisei soldiers of World War II. We got out of the museum, on the steps of the museum, I was telling Aiko, we want to find some way to let the public know that what they did, is really important. Even at our old age, I felt we need to do something.
My mother was very passionate about really wanting to bring the story of the Nisei soldiers out to the broader audience, and she really did feel one way to do that was through the stamp that was sort of universal.
We started this campaign, stamp campaign. Aiko would write letters and I would write letters. It was strictly the grassroots. Everything was done by mail.
After all these years, my mother, Aiko, she spent so much time and was so, I'm going to say, obsessed with the stamp campaign. Everywhere she went, she was looking to get people to sign petitions. And she carried it in her bag, whether we were at a restaurant or meeting somebody, just strangers.
Even if we didn't get the stamp, I thought the publicity of doing the campaign would help. And I think it really did. Chizo Hira, she joined us when we were getting kind of stagnant, and so she asked Wayne to help us with the stamp, and he became our coordinator. If it wasn't for him, I don't think we would have ever had a stamp issued.
I was so inspired, I said, I'm on board. What can I do? And we took their letters and we expanded them into a petition, and you'd be amazed at all the people that signed up.
When I got the news about the stamp from Wayne, I just couldn't believe it, because we waited for 15 years.
Now that this stamp is actually being issued, we're just really proud of my grandma and her fellow co-founders.
Yeah, just to think that the stamp's being issued after all those years of work, it makes me get emotional. Sometimes I can't talk. It gives me chills. And she worked so hard at it, and it meant so much to her.
All of you Americans of Japanese descent have a right to be proud. You have demonstrated true Americanism on the field of battle. The 34th Division is proud of you. The 5th Army is proud of you. America is proud of you.
I didn't really realize how much the Nisei soldiers did until I started researching and reading more about the stories that they have out there about them.
My husband, he was in military intelligence service, and he was stationed in Japan, and he did counterintelligence work too.
When I found out that our dad was in the MIS, the Military Intelligence Service, which was where they did the translation of a lot of the documents and what part they played in the war, that was a real eye-opener for me.
Yeah, I've heard that the war could have gone on for a few more years if it wasn't for the MIS and their help in breaking codes and interpreting and things like that.
Japanese American women also served in the MIS as well as in the Women's Army Corps and as nurses.
I was just really surprised on how quick the Niseis volunteered or were drafted into the service. Even being behind barbed wire, they viewed themselves as true Americans, and of course they're going to fight for their country.
One of the reasons about the stamp is that while I was in camp, several of my classmates' brothers were killed in action.
Some people tell me they put us in there for our protection, with the barbed wires, with the guard posts.
while your family's basically being imprisoned, that you would go fight for the country. That is pretty amazing, to be so patriotic.
When the call came for volunteers for a combat team, I volunteered from a relocation center to show my loyalty and to prove that I had the right to live as a good American citizen.
Throughout the war, Japanese Americans in the tens of thousands remained utterly loyal to the United States.
Freedom is something you really have to go through losing it before you appreciate it. In spite of them being in camp, they gave it their best. And I thought if the people learned that, I thought it would help people understand that you can't judge a person by their looks and everything. You have to judge a person individually.
The Nisei soldiers really opened up a lot of doors to us as Japanese Americans that never would have been possible without them proving their loyalty and kind of fighting for the things that they believed in. It would have been completely different. And I know that it's because my grandma and grandpa worked so hard, and all the Niseis did. They had to.
The Nisei legacy to me is just strong will. They really came out of camps with nothing. So many of them came out okay. They were able to raise their families and get college educations, get jobs, and just start their lives all over again.
To me, in my eyes, they were the true Americans. They fought for their country, they were strong, they came out of that war, they didn't complain and feel sorry for themselves, but they continued to just really move forward. We should all be very proud of our Japanese American heritage.
You fought not only the enemy, but you fought prejudice, and you've won.
Rarely has a nation been so well served by a people it had so ill-treated. For their numbers and length of service, the Japanese Americans of the 442nd Regimental Combat Team, including the 100th Infantry Battalion, became the most decorated unit in American military history. Americans of Asian descent did much more than prove they were Americans. They made our nation more American.
They fought for the freedom of the United States even when they didn't have that freedom themselves.
I just hope people are open to hearing the stories of the Japanese American soldiers. And I just hope it helps amplify just Asian voices in general, especially right now with so much prejudice happening.
I hope this stamp would lessen the discrimination against the Asians.
For this stamp to come out at this point in time, I hope it makes people a little more aware of contributions that Asians have done.
Go for Broke means my grandpa Ted singing, means my grandma's ability to make beauty out of anything.
For me, I think the image of the Nisei soldier on the stamp will hopefully remind people that we're all Americans.
I hope it does wonders.
It is long past time to break the silence about their courage, to put faces and names with the courage, and to honor it.
Wasn't that beautiful? There was some footage there I hadn't even seen before, which was just incredible. Gotta find out where that came from. So that's a beautiful film. So now we have some live readings of letters, Kondo letters with Wayne King and James Nakamura.
June 5th, 1943. Dear my Henry, now you are one of American soldiers and you had great Nippon nation blood in your spirit, so you must be doing your duty for this country. Don't forget, if you have chance to study hard your lesson and make you great, Please take care of your health. You're not very strong, so I worry about it. Must be careful your drinking water. We wish if you have chance to come over, see us sometime. Please don't worry about your mother and dad. We are old, but we take care of ourselves. We're very lonely. You, Harvey, and Misa all out this week. Yours truly, from your father.
April 21st, 1944. Dear Dad and Mom, please don't worry about me, because there isn't anything to worry about. The American Army is quite different from the Japanese Army. They don't believe in useless human sacrifices. So I have a very good chance of coming back. I sure do miss both of you, now that I've been away for almost 1 year. I understand how much you mean to me and how terrible of a son I've been. Please excuse this for now. Well, good night for now. God be with both of you, Mom, always. Don't always worry about me. I could take care of myself. Your son, Henry. August 23rd, 1944. Dearest Misa, I received your most welcome letter of August 10th today. Very happy to know that all of you are in the best of health. I'm still okay, keeping my skin intact. I'm writing this letter in my foxhole in a hole 6 feet by 5 by 2 feet, my temporary home. The Krauts have been shelling this area well since we've been here. They're situated on some high mountains. Looking down our throats isn't too pleasant. Besides, these Germans have got big guns now, and boy, when those shells hit, even at a couple hundred yards away, you feel the concussion. A couple nights ago, a number of rounds landed too close for my comfort. Boy, Misa, that concussion was something terrific. The shrapnel, dirt, dust, and everything around the place was flying in all directions. One large chunk of shrapnel almost tore a tree that overlooking my hole in two. Well, Misa, like these fellows say, if one doesn't land in your hole, you're always okay. And one does, you won't know. Better call it quits now. Love, Hank.
Thank you very much. And now I'd like to introduce Kimmy Thompson, the granddaughter of Fusa Takahashi. Kimmy.
Hi, I'm Kimmy Thompson, and I'm honored to speak here today in behalf of my grandma, Fusa Takahashi, and our family. When I think back on the last 15 years and how dedicated Grandma has been to making this stamp a reality, I'm filled with so much awe and admiration. From the flyers you passed out by hand, to the hundreds of letters you wrote, to the thousands of signatures you collected, to asking us grandkids to think of a hashtag to spread the message even further. You did it, Grandma. Hashtag Stamp Our Story is here. This stamp is such a special way to honor the Nisei men and women that served in World War II. As Grandma explains, a stamp is tangible and universal. It will generate broader awareness, inspire conversations, and encourage learning, especially in light of what we're seeing echoed today. This stamp will forever be a reminder of the importance of the Nisei soldiers' contribution to the United States of America. My grandpa, Kazuo Takahashi, was one of these soldiers. He was part of the MIS, which provided translation and counterintelligence. Grandpa passed away before I was born, so I never got to hear his stories firsthand, but Grandma always wanted their story to be told. How Grandpa was drafted into the U.S. Army while incarcerated at Topaz internment camp. How Grandma, at 14 years old, her parents and her 6 siblings were uprooted and sent to the Merced Assembly Center and the Amachi internment camp in Colorado, and how they had to leave everything behind, including their family dog. This is a part of history that I didn't learn about in school, but I'm so grateful to have learned about through Grandma's stories and throughout the stamp campaign. There are 3 things that I'll always have from Grandma's stamp journey. First, I am proud. I am proud of my Japanese American heritage and that this is a part of my story. I'm proud that Grandma came up with the idea for the stamp at 78 years old and persevered for over 15 years to make this happen. Second, I am thankful. I am thankful for the service of the Nisei soldiers. I am thankful for the previous generations who have paved their way through hard work, sacrifice, and loyalty. I'm thankful for my grandma's co-founders, Chiz and Aiko, and Wayne Hosako, who has been such a driving force in making Grandma's dream come true. And finally, I'm hopeful. The Nisei legacy is a part of history that we should all be proud of and a part of history that all Americans should know about. My hope is that through this stamp, more people will learn, listen to, and amplify stories like Grandma's. Grandma, on behalf of your 4 kids, your 10 grandkids, and your 3 great-grandkids, congratulations. We are so proud of you. We promise to always remember your story. We love you.
Kimmy, that was beautiful, and we learned a lot. Thank you so much. And now I would like to introduce Sandra Tanamachi, who's speaking on behalf of Captain Marty Higgins' daughter. Captain Marty Higgins is a very important person when it comes to the legacy of the 442nd, because he was in charge of the Lost Battalion and kept them alive and kept them fighting while the Nisei was trying to reach them and eventually did rescue them. So ladies and gentlemen, Sandra Tanamachi.
Thank you very much. I met Marty Higgins in July 2004 when we were preparing to testify before the Jefferson County Commissioner's Court to change the name of Jap Road. He wrote a letter to the commissioners asking them to change the name of the road because of the many sacrifices of our Nisei veterans. One of the veterans who was killed in action during the rescue was my uncle, Saburo Tanamachi. He died in the arms of his best buddy, George Joe Sakato. After my uncle died in his arms, Joe went on a rampage, which earned him the Congressional Medal of Honor. Uncle Saburo was one of the first 2 Japanese Americans to be buried in Arlington National Cemetery. Many Nisei veterans wrote to the commissioners protesting the name Jap Road, including Senator Daniel Inouye, Joe Sakato, Lawson Sakai, and so many of our heroes. Now these are Marty Higgins' daughter's words. Congratulations on the 2021 commemorative Go for Broke Nisei Soldier Stamp. I know that my father, Captain Martin J. Higgins, known as Marty, would be so pleased for the Nisei veterans of World War II. After the rescue on October 30th, 1944, my father began a lifelong association with the Nisei veterans and their families. In 1948, Mike Masaoka, Washington representative of the Japanese American Citizens League, and Katz Kushida, Midwest representative in Chicago, took my parents to eat at a Japanese restaurant for a wonderful dinner. Mike had lost a brother in the liberation of my father's battalion. Both gentlemen asked my father to write letters to senators and congressmen to help get their parents' citizenship. They provided the names of senators and congressmen controlling the bill. My father successfully lobbied for the passage of the Immigration Act of 1952, which gave citizenship to the Issei generation. These letters are kept in the collection department of the Japanese American National Museum in Los Angeles. My father donated them in 2000. Dad would be so delighted that the Nisei veterans, many of them his friends, will be honored with the Go for Broke Nisei Soldier stamp. Mary Pat Higgins Abronzo, proud daughter of Marty Higgins. Thank you.
Sandra, thank you so much. Very revealing. And now, if I can just inquire, is there somebody here from Lieutenant Erwin Blonder's family? Yes, sir. Oh, come on down. Lieutenant Erwin Blonder, also from the Lost Battalion, very similar to Captain Marty Higgins' family, and very much in connection with the Nisei after the rescue of the Lost Battalion. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Leslie Tramer, and she is Lieutenant Erwin Blonder's daughter. It's an honor to have her here with us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. As the eldest of 3 daughters of the late First Lieutenant Erwin Blonder, the radio operator of the Lost Battalion, I would like to thank you for the honor of being able to say a few words. If not for the bravery and courage of the 442nd, I would not be standing here today. Without the determination of the band of brothers, the Lost Battalion would have perished at the hands of the Germans in the Vosges Mountains in France. Our family wants to thank those who fought so bravely and for the great sacrifice that they made. We acknowledge the wrong that was done to the Japanese American community during World War II, and we are so grateful that the heroism of the 442nd is being honored by this stamp. I'd like to share my dad's words with you. He said, "There never was any talk of surrendering, and I believed if the Germans made a concerted attack on us, we would fight to the last man. Without Marty Higgins' leadership, we would have not survived. I owe my life to Marty and to the men of the 442nd Combat Team." He also once said, "The whole effort of the 442nd was to relieve the Lost Battalion. Again, they made many charges at the German position. They lost men in doing so, but that did not stop these brave Nisei. This was the toughest battle any unit in the American Army ever fought. No other outfit in the U.S. Army had the will and fortitude to accomplish what they did in the Vosges. They went through hell to get us. My dad's last radio broadcast was, 'Tell them we love them,' and he lived these words until the end of his life. Many years ago, my parents invited our family to go along with them to attend a Nisei reunion in Las Vegas. They wanted to ensure that the heroes like George Sakato, Lawson Sakai, and all the members of the 100th were more than just names to us. It was our great privilege and cherished honor to know them. My dad kept in touch with many of the men who rescued the Lost Battalion, and he worked diligently to make sure that they were recognized. What happened 77 years ago in the Vosges forest had a profound effect on the values and ideals that were passed down to us, his 3 daughters, now to our children and now to our grandchildren. This year, I had the immense privilege of attending and being part of a Suru for Solidarity Healing Circle. The gratitude for the sacrifices made by men like Saburo Tamachi, the memory of the rescue will never be forgotten. The bonds forged and arms linked by the progeny of the rescuers and the rescued are etched in our genetic code. This commemorative stamp is an important step in telling a story not told often enough to students of American history, and hopefully this will give voice to conversations for decades to come, and also for the hard conversations that we need to have now in our country. Thank you, and congratulations.
That was beautiful. Leslie, thank you so much. What a great little gem, that letter. Incredible. And now, if I can introduce Mr. Wayne King, son of SOSC founder. Wayne?
They told me there would be a short video between, but. My mother, Aiko King, is one of the founding members of the Go For Broke campaign. For years, it was her obsession. She often expressed such a sense of urgency for having the stamp issued. It had already been 50 plus years since the war ended by the time the stamp campaign was conceived. Many of the veterans had already passed away. She wanted so badly for the stamp to be issued before too many years and before too many of the veterans had also passed. Little did they know at the time how much time and work would be involved. Fortunately, they found Wayne Osako. Excuse me for that. When presented with the idea for the stamp and asked if he would help out, Wayne was all in. He became the driving force that brought it over the finish line. In sales, they tell you that every no brings you one step closer to a yes. I can assure you that Wayne and the 3 ladies got far more than their fair share of no's. For Wayne, my mother, Fusa, and the late Chizohiro, I don't think no was ever an acceptable option. For them, it would take however long it would take to get it done. Service to others, without hesitation, without reservation, at great risk and sacrifice to oneself. Loyalty to country, honor, integrity, humility, and don't embarrass your family. These are the qualities that describe the brave Nisei men and women who served our country during World War II. They showed their patriotism, even when many of their families back home were being incarcerated by the very country they were fighting for. Sandra Tanamachi just spoke about Captain Marty Higgins. After the war, his actions for successfully lobbying Congress for the passage of the Immigration Act of 1952, which granted the right of citizenship to the Issei, paved the way for the historical event in my family. My grandmother, Tomika Ogata, was the first Japanese person in the state of Minnesota to become a U.S. citizen. There were 2 that day. A local newspaper documented the event with an article headline, "Native Japs Made Citizens." I hope the stamp helps bring recognition not just to the Japanese, but to all minorities who have suffered discrimination by this country they call their own. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Wayne. And now we have a special video for you from our Japanese American World War II veterans, followed by that letter reading of a Tanaway letter.
I'm Yoshi Nakamura of the 442nd Regimental Combat Team, companies M and L.
Anytime.
My name is Tokuji Yoshihashi. I was in Company A of the 100th Battalion, and I'm very happy that they're coming out with a stamp to honor our...
I'm Ralph Matsumoto, World War II MIS. This stamp honors the legacy of the brave Japanese-American World War II veterans.
My name is Shigemi Hashimoto. I was with the MIS Division of the Army. I would like to thank Gopher Brook for honoring myself and my fellow World War II veterans.
I'm Virgil Westdale. I was in the World War II in the 526.
Now I'm going to read a letter from Mr. Ted Tanaway, who is the only Medal of Honor recipient from the city of Torrance, from the 442. Mr. Tanaway died from wounds he received when a 442nd combat engineer accidentally triggered a landmine. This letter was written on August 27th, 1944, from Italy to Rower, Arkansas. Hiya, folks. Received your most interesting letter today. Good to hear from you all. As for me, I'm in the best of health. At present, I'm on the front lines again, dodging artillery fire and bullets, just sweating our heads off. Glad to hear that Kie, Haru, and Sue is doing okay in Chicago. How is everyone over there? In good health, I presume. Don't worry about me. I'm okay, yet only miss Akira now. Hey, did you receive my Purple Heart medal yet? Also, I sent a couple packages of souvenirs too. Let me know when you receive them too. Well, beside that, there isn't much else to write about. The same old stuff out here in Italy. I'd like to hear more about things going on out there. So keep up the good writing. Good to receive letters from someone back home, especially as I'm here sitting in a foxhole. Really gets lonesome at times. If it weren't for those letters, read them about a dozen times sometimes. That's all for now, till later. So long, and my regards to all. Brother Ted. And Mr. Tanaway and Akira are now buried next to each other at Evergreen Cemetery. They were best friends.
Our thanks to Derek Mio for that. And now I'd like to introduce Dr. John Mitamura, son of Chiz Ohira, one of our founders.
Thank you, David. Good morning. On behalf of my mom, Chizuko Ohira, I want to thank you all for all of your efforts, and the veterans, of course, especially for the final resolution of the commemorative stamp. Ted Ohira was born in Makawele in Kauai, and he tricked his mom at the age of 17 to sign papers to get him to join. He fought in Italy and France, and for courage and valor under fire, he was awarded a bronze medal. My mom was very active with the vets and the families, and when offered to participate in the commemorative stamp project, she jumped right in and she'd talk to people, and she'd give her signature dollar bill folded frogs. And she'd always say, if you ran out of money, you can always unfold the frog and spend it. So she would be so gratified and so happy that this finally came to fruition. And I just want to, again, say thank you to all of you, Wayne especially, and with great gratitude. Thank you.
Doctor, thank you so much. Nice to hear from you. Kaze Jones now gives us this spoken word tribute.
Salutations, go for broke, 442. My name is Kazi Jones. I am a Nisei Japanese American hip hop artist and also a teacher. Wanted to give a big shout out and domo arimasu to Robert Horsting and the Stamp Our Story Committee, and of course the Japanese American National Museum. Today is a historical moment, and I'm very honored and touched that I am able to share it with all of you. Thank you for your efforts. Stamp Our Story. Now, what does it mean to be a true American? I often ask myself that, because as a second generation Nisei Japanese American, I wonder if I would have been held back by all the hate and animosity towards my people who love this country just as much as you, but they were kidnapped, forced away and locked in a cage in concentration camps, living one day without a care in the world, and then questioned for their loyalty the next, hurting all Japanese adults, boys and girls, moved from homes to barracks. They were deemed full sea enemy aliens. My people's houses were raided, all belongings and family crests were confiscated, displaced and based in 10 camps across 6 states from Manzanar, California, to Jerome in Arkansas, to Poston in Arizona. They were given the chance to join a segregated unit to show the loyalty to this country and for them to prove it. The 442 were created the East Liberator Movement. Now, although they were small in stature, the 442nd showed no fear against the Germans. They trekked through Gruyère's France and stormed through the streets of Europe, climbing through the rubble and rising like a phoenix from about the ruins, earning themselves heroic medallions, rescuing the locals and the famous Texans of the Lost Battalion with almost 5,000 Purple Hearts, 21 Congressional Medals of Honor. Their unit motto was go for broke, meaning they went all in and gambled with karma. In unprecedented 7 presidential unit citations, so that their courage and valor would release their people from racial segregation and constant interrogation. Future generations will pass the torch and will remember their bravery, with survivors continuing to tell their stories from upon the porch of traumatic memories. Now let's let their screams of triumph and glory ring through the halls of time, breaking through each stronghold and crumbling walls of doubt, and letting the declaration shine that we are all American because we believe in the equality of all. The democracy will prevail and that hate and evil will fall. So let's celebrate today, because this is not just an achievement for the Issei and Nisei. This is validation that we have earned the right to stay in this beautiful place in all its grace. This day was only made possible by the grassroots campaign, fueled by decades of struggle and pain, so we do not let our forefathers' lives have been lost in vain. Fusa Takahashi, Aiko, King Chizo, Hiro, Ueno, Sako help bring about change, the change in how we view each other, in how we perceive the world, in hopes that we will never lose our way. Stamp Our Story is a seal of approval to send every message with love and solidarity each and every day. It was us, Kazi Jones.
Kaze Jones, thanks to him. Too bad he isn't with us today, but great to see him on video. And those kinds of performances are so important to us as we try to bring in the younger generation and teach them about this incredible chapter in history. And now I'd like to introduce Wayne Osako, co-chair. Please join us, Wayne.
Thank you, David. I want to thank Anne and Janum and Norm Mineta for hosting us here today so graciously. There could be no other place, as Anne said, that we would end the Stamp Our Story campaign is right here. And it's very moving. I know I speak for a lot of you that it's this quaint stamp, and it looks huge here, but when you actually get it, it's like this tiny, right? But in reality, as we all know, it's like infinite. It's huge. And it reaches across the United States. It reaches across the oceans. In France, I don't know if you know, but we had a stamp campaign there. Yeah. As you heard earlier today, the members of the 442 and the 100th Battalion served throughout Europe, and they liberated towns in France. So those citizens in France remember to this day, and if you ever go there, you'll see streets named after the 100th 442. And I really hope someday we'll see more streets here too. We have a Sadao Munamori overpass by LAX, but I'd like to see more. I'm so happy to follow Kaze and his youthful spirit and exuberance, because at 79 years old, when I worked with Fusa and Aiko and the late Chizohira, to me, they embodied that youthful spirit. They really fueled me, and they treated me so kindly, and I'm forever grateful, because it brought me into this wonderful family, this community. And everybody in the audience here today and out listening, wherever you are, the stamp embodies community. That's really what it's about. We're part of this community as Japanese Americans. I'm a Sansei and Yonsei on my mother's side too. And I have family who served during World War II. Both my parents were incarcerated as young teenagers in camp at 12, 13, and they didn't know what they did wrong. And they were put into the camps, and they're like, what? Why is everybody treating me so strangely? And there was nothing wrong. There was absolutely nothing wrong. The only wrong was that the government treated them like the enemy because of the way they looked, their heritage. And throughout their lives, I know they kind of struggled with it. There's a certain sense of loss and difficulties through that. But they endured, and that's what this Go for Broke soldier stamp embodies too, is the endurance, is the longevity. I'm really happy in a moment you're going to hear one of my favorite artists in Jun Kuramoto of Hiroshima and Kimo Cornwell. They might not remember, but I was in the audience when they had a Sansei musical performance many years ago, and I attended with my father, and I had tears in my eyes, honestly, when I heard the songs. Behind me, and you've seen it earlier in the program, and around our beloved Nisei veterans' necks, we have leis of the origami cranes. And one reason I really wanted these cranes in June is because, as you heard from Dr. Mitamura, it embodies a lot of what Chiz and the other founders brought to the stamp campaign. And by the way, Dr. Mitamura, I have, yes, and I keep it in my wallet on this. So thank you, Chiz. And honestly, throughout the campaign, and all of you heard it from me, our community, the team that made this happen is incredible, and thank you all. This is all volunteers. I'm not kidding. So we're very grateful to all of you. So with Chiz in mind, I asked my daughter's teachers, they go to school in Anaheim Elementary School District. Thank you, Dr. Chris Downing, who's in attendance. I talked to my daughter's teachers, Laura Houston, Chris Locke, and Summer Hattori, and they were inspired. They were inspired by you, Fusa, Aiko, and the campaign, and they said, yes, we're gonna do a curriculum. We're gonna fold cranes. Can we fold cranes? And they got all into it. They didn't quite make it to 1,000, but maybe all of you can help us make it to 1,000. Cranes, paper cranes, if you don't know, in traditional Japanese culture, represents longevity. And the way to get to longevity is not just by happenstance, it's through endurance, it's through perseverance. So I wanted just to point that out as part of the Go for Broke Soldier stamp, and the spirit of the Go for Broke battle cry is embodied in endurance and longevity in these cranes, and the beautiful song that we're going to hear in a moment. So thank you all for coming. I know we're going to have a few more things to show you, but I just want to say also thank you to my wife, Wheatwan. My daughters, Maya and Clara. Sorry, but they've endured through the whole process too of the campaign. My daughters are 12, and they've only known me as, yeah, seriously, they think it's my job. This is my full-time job. But I'm a volunteer, you know, so, but honestly, I would want it no other way, because they, you know, this is, I've kind of said it before, it's kind of like a dream job. I mean, seriously, I've never met David Ono. I would have never met many of you, and you know, I'm very honored and humbled by it all. And thank you for all the kind words of some of the speakers and many of you today. But we've been inspired by our community. I just want to point out a few people from across the nation that couldn't be here, and we have people like Carol Herhold in Chicago, Illinois, also retired. She got in Chicago, she got the Illinois State Resolution many years ago, and she's not Japanese American, but she's part of our community too. And from near Gila River, we had Marianne Schaefer, also rallied people around her. We had people like Rabbi Shmuley Novak in Jacksonville, Florida. He's a descendant, grandson of the late Lieutenant David Novak, who, if you didn't know, Japanese Americans couldn't be officers in World War II, so they had non-Japanese American officers. So David Novak, his grandson, helped us many, many ways. So many of these people, Doris Diaz in the Central Valley here, she was just so inspired. She would just say, I want to teach the young people. Have you seen sometimes the lessons that they're getting from the community, from even our leaders sometimes? You know, we need the truth. We need the story of the Go for Broke soldier is the truth. You know, that's the kind of truth we all need. So all of these community of people are part of what the Stamp Our Story coalition, our campaign, have embodied all these years. We'd like it to continue, so hey, we need Native American, Navajo code talkers. They would deserve a stamp. Let's stamp their story. There are many stories out there, and let's embrace in each other and our differences, and let's unite as humans and celebrate and honor this legacy. So it's an honor. Thank you. And just think about the Cranes and Shizuhira and all the Nisei founders and the Nisei veterans, those alive and those who have passed. So I honor my Nisei elders through this campaign, and they're with me always. Thank you.
Wayne, that was wonderful. You embody the spirit and the importance of what this program means to this community, and congratulations for all the hard work. Thank you for all you have done. And so before we get to that wonderful musical rendition that Wayne was talking about, one quick video. We all know who Sadao Munimori is, one of our heroes, recipient of the Medal of Honor. And Derek Miho reads one of his letters because Sadao wrote many letters home, and they're very revealing about what his life was like just before he gave his life for this country. So this video from Derek Miho.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Derek Mio, and I will be reading a letter from the very first Medal of Honor recipient from the 100th or 442nd Regimental Combat Team, Mr. Sadao Munimori, who died from wounds in Italy after jumping on a grenade to save his squad mates. To Munimori family, Los Angeles, California. From PFC Spud Munimori, Camp Robinson, Arkansas. Postmark March 31st, 1942. Dearest family, today I got some insurance. It is worth $10,000. They deduct $6.50 from my salary each month while I'm in the Army. If I get killed after May 1st, 1942, Mom will get $80 a month for the rest of her life. If Mom dies before I do, then Isao will get it. When I say Isao, I mean the one who can use it to the best advantage in the family. I know I'll come back from the war alive, but just in case they send you my dog tag, it will mean I'm gone to see Pops. I know I'll feel much better if I know Mom was getting at least $80 like this. When we get killed, they cut the number 2 tag off and you will get it. The number 1 tag is left around my neck for identification. Anyway, I just want you to know you don't have to worry about anything. Sadao. And now, I will read a letter from Sadao's brother Robert that was sent to their sister, Yaeko. To Miss Yaeko Munimori, Madison, Wisconsin, from Robert Munimori, Manzanar, California. Postmark April 21st, 1945. Dear Yaeko, at last it has really come to a bitter end. This afternoon at about 12:30 p.m., the Red Cross worker brought the fatal telegram stating that on April 5th, 1945, Sadao was killed in action in Italy. Mama says that sooner or later she was expecting such a telegram, but didn't know that it would be so soon. As Sadao said, that he would come back in one piece was only a thought and not a reality. Mama was praying and hoping that he would come home alive, but this put a final tough on the matter. We just received a letter from Italy from Sadao last Friday, postmarked April 4 NY. It must have happened right after the transfer from France to Italy just a few days ago. In his letter, he states that he enjoyed the candy and everything we sent him, and as a change would like some sakuraboshi or such Japanese food. We sent him a package only last Tuesday with rice, abalone, and nori no tsukudani, and was going to send him the fish and things just as soon as it arrived. Now it's no use to send anything because of what happened. Kikuyo had a feeling that it wasn't going to reach him in time, and sure enough, it was true. Mama also had a dream about Sadao on a mountain crag lying there in the snow, but somehow didn't seem dead, but alive. The camp director is going to hold a service for all, and on April 29th, along with another boy who was killed the same day and also from Manzanar. They're going to have a large photo of both boys in the doorway of the auditorium on that day. Mama says it's no use you coming home again, so stay where you are and go to the church and pray for him. We are also having a service privately here at the near future, but as yet the date has not been set pending the time of the Reverend of the church. We all feel very sad at the present moment, and there's hardly anything to say. Well, until I hear from you, I remain your brother, Robert.
Our thanks to Derek Miho for that. Sobering to hear those letters, even many years later. We now want to welcome two dear friends of ours, June and Kimo of the band Hiroshima, playing a special musical tribute to the Nisei World War II veterans. It's called Thousand Cranes. As Wayne mentioned, cranes are symbols of endurance and hope in Japanese culture. And paper cranes, like the ones you see right over here, displayed right over there, are folded in this spirit by school children around the world. These beautiful cranes are from Stoddard Elementary School in the Anaheim Elementary School District in honor of our Nisei veterans and elders. So June and Kimo will be followed by a videotaped remark from Los Angeles Mayor Eric Garcetti. But June and Kimo, thank you so much. June and Kimo. That was so beautiful. Thank you so much. And it fit the mood today. And finally, before we say goodbye, a message from Mayor Eric Garcetti.
Hello, everyone. I'm Mayor Eric Garcetti, and it's an honor for Los Angeles to be the first city to issue the Go for Broke Soldier Stamp. I want to thank all of the Stamp Our Story Coalition members, the dedicated volunteers who played a crucial role in making this stamp a reality. Go for Broke was the motto of Japanese American soldiers in World War II who, in a remarkable show of patriotism, fought for freedom abroad, even as their own government imprisoned their families here at home. This stamp gives us an opportunity in Los Angeles to honor their courage and bravery, to carry forward our legacy as a city built, strengthened, and sustained by generations of immigrants, including Japanese Americans who have been so essential to the LA story. We celebrate their contributions, and at a moment when we're seeing a rise in hate crimes against Japanese Americans and other Asian American and Pacific Islander communities, we affirm there is no place for discrimination and bigotry in this city of belonging. So thank you, and I encourage you, go get your Go for Broke stamp today.
All right, that is the perfect note to leave our program today, because before we close, we do want to remind you that you all can buy your Go for Broke stamps online at USPS.com. And today, in fact, right outside at the USPS kiosk, they're putting up a kiosk right outside of JANM, where you can go there from 12:30 to 2 today and buy your stamps. Also, in addition, JANM will be selling merchandise including Shane Sato's Go for Broke Spirit Portraits of Courage book and Stacy Hayashi's manga book, Journey of Heroes, and the Rafu Shimpo's Proud to Serve. So many things to get. So at 12:30 to 2, look for that kiosk outside of JANM. So on behalf of our Stamp Our Story Committee in the Japanese American National Museum, who hosted us today, thank you so much for coming and supporting us all. It's been a pleasure to be your MC today. What a moving tribute. So many wonderful words from everybody out there. A special conclusion now to our program is from Hawaii. Oh, hang on a second. All right, we are done. Thank you so much. Oh, we were going to run a video, but we're not going to do that now. Thank you very much. Mingle, get to know each other. Come up and take some photos of the stamp as well.